So Captain Marvel's been out for about a week now, and I'm pretty sure everyone's seen it. A lot of people hated this movie, but a lot of people really loved it. I found myself somewhere in the middle. I'm going to give you a lot of reasons as to why, and we'll definitely be delving into some spoilers here, so if you want to avoid that and just see the rating, skip to right here in the video. Otherwise, enjoy. So before I really dive into this movie, there's another movie that I want to address, a little film I like to call Mississippi Grind. Mississippi Grind is the movie that Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck co-directed and wrote before they got the green light for Captain Marvel. On the surface, it's a poker movie starring Ben Mendelsohn and Ryan Reynolds, but once you turn it on, it becomes this really deep character study that's honestly really well directed and written. It's basically a movie about a seemingly unlikable underdog who, as we learn more about their past and as they develop more now, we like more and more and eventually really root for them. Sound familiar? Watching this movie got me really excited for Captain Marvel because that's like the structure for some of my favorite superhero origin stories ever. And look, Ben Mendelsohn is in it too. All the pieces were there for this to be a really great character study that let us get to know Carol Danvers and want to know more about her in future installments. This was supposed to be the movie that made me root for Captain Marvel. This was not the movie we got. What I liked about Captain Marvel: Stan Lee. The movie opens with the best Marvel logo ever being compiled of basically just clips of Stan Lee in the past. It was really beautiful, and I'm really glad it was how they started the movie. This was then paired with my new favorite Stan Lee cameo. He's literally just reading his script for his cameo in the movie Mallrats. That's awesome. It made me smile for sure. Some of the visual effects. I thought the visual effects team behind making Fury and Coulson look younger were, well, they did the best I've ever seen done. Let's put it that way. This movie set an entirely new precedent for de-aging in visual effects. The story. The story itself was pretty cool to me. I thought the Skrull were really cool. The way they flipped sides halfway through the movie was really cool. I liked learning more about the Kree and more about Ronan the Accuser. There were a lot of really cool ideas presented in this movie. Even her not knowing her past was almost interesting to me for the first bit. The supporting cast. Ben Mendelsohn and Sam Jackson were pretty great in this movie, particularly Ben. He's just a great actor, and it kind of felt like some of the best dialogue was his. I don't know if that's because of his delivery or because the writers just cared more about his character, but either way, I definitely cared more about his character. He was great. What I don't like about Captain Marvel: Brie Larson as Carol Danvers. Brie Larson is a great actress, and there's no denying that. She won an Oscar for the movie Room, and I think it's well deserved. The amount of emotional depth she brought to that character in that movie was remarkable. There was just something missing from her in this. I'm not sure if she just wasn't as emotionally invested in the dull dialogue, or if it was more of a problem like there was with Thor in the beginning of his run, where it just felt kind of weird live action until they found the right director to help really assist with his line delivery and the lines he actually said. You know what I mean? The whole movie I was thinking she was just acting really smug, and it was kind of unlikable. And then in the very end, when she's basically just attempting to save the entire human race, she's just like woo-hooing through enemy ships. It just made it not impactful at all for me. And speaking of enemy ships, because of the plot of the movie, which I actually kind of liked, we went from thinking that the Skrulls were the bad guy to them being the ones that we were trying to help out. So this means that in the whole first half of the movie, Captain Marvel is just like obliterating Skrulls right in front of you with no remorse. And then when she finds out they're actually the good guys, she just flips and starts obliterating Kree. And the whole end of the movie is her just like destroying so many of the people who she just thought were like her family, her people. This was weird. She was just on the flip of a dime so ruthless, it made it weird that I was supposed to be rooting for a character that was so easily persuaded to just lay waste to an entire race of people. I think that would have been a lot better if they would have just addressed it at least, or maybe if they address it in the future I won't care as much. The dialogue. The dialogue and jokes in this movie were just not good. There's literally a line in this movie where a guy is like, "Sorry, women are too emotional. That's why it's called a cockpit." I don't know, it was just bad. And then there were cheesy one-liners that Brie Larson just didn't put any cheese into at all. Like all the lines that are in the trailers were honestly how all of her lines were in the movie. It just hardly ever landed for me and constantly was reminding me that, yep, I'm in a movie right now. Bad retcons. Retcons are basically when pre-established things in a large universe changes for one particular story. Like when we find out the Winter Soldier is actually the reason why Tony's parents die and it isn't just some car crash. That's technically a retcon, but that's a really good one in my opinion. Captain Marvel is what I consider to be a movie filled with bad retcons. Remember in Iron Man when S.H.I.E.L.D. was still Strategic Homeland the Strategic... Oh my god, I can't. Okay. Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcements and Logistics Division? Jesus. Well, that whole plot point is now just eradicated because in the entirety of Captain Marvel, they just refer to it as S.H.I.E.L.D. It just bothered me for some reason, and every time they said it, I was like, wait, isn't that gonna happen later? I mean, it kind of makes Coulson look just insane, doesn't it? Also, I'm not really sure if it's considered a retcon exactly, but the whole fact that the name The Avengers is now just a namesake of a person who's never even fought with or for the Avengers, I don't know, it just bothered me. Oh yeah, and remember when Nick Fury said the last time he trusted someone he lost an eye? Yeah, really great moment. It was Goose the cat. Come on. It just felt so forced and unfunny to me, and I know that some people will say him exaggerating about how that happened is totally in character for him, but even in the moment, the cat was like poorly done CGI. Okay, I know at this point I'm probably just nitpicking, but the way she decided to turn her suit red, white, and blue so that she could show that she's on America's team or whatever, it felt so odd and out of place. I just feel like something like that could have been a really cool moment, but they made it weird. Speaking of that moment, the friend of Carol and the little girl really weren't that great, and they had some of the worst dialogue in the movie. There's basically a moment where she is just yelling at Carol for being gone for like a few years or whatever, even though Carol just got done explaining that she has amnesia and is absolutely clueless to what's going on. It just felt so cold and like forced conflict for the sake of conflict in a movie. Basically, none of their scenes worked for me. I hope they don't continue to be in this franchise. They reminded me a lot of in Thor, how there were those two side characters who I already forgot, and they were in the second one too, and you're like, why? Yeah, oh yeah, it was Natalie Portman, and anyway. The music. Some of the music in this movie kind of worked for me. The actual score was pretty bland, mostly just Marvel music, but there were a couple elements to it that made it unique, which I liked, kind of grounded the 90s setting, which I liked. But most of the songs in the soundtrack did not work for me very well at all. I know that a lot of people are going to like the soundtrack for being grounded in that 90s theme, but that's like all it was. It didn't feel emotionally attached to the story. They would just play a song so you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember when that was a song. Two in particular felt really out of place for me. Just a Girl by No Doubt plays during this big action scene that's really poorly edited and it feels like a knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy. And then later in the movie they play Nirvana over a scene and it really did feel so out of place that I think it might have been intentionally ironic. I don't know though, because it wasn't done well enough for me to just know that that was intentionally ironic. Either way, it didn't work. The action scenes. The best action scenes in this movie definitely came when Captain Marvel wasn't using her superpowers, but even those were edited so poorly that they were kind of hard to enjoy. It really did feel like a step back from the last 4 or 5 Marvel movies that have had some pretty clean action scenes. How feminism played a role. This is the first female-led movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so obviously feminism is already playing a role there. Although I do have a friend who has convinced me before that Black Widow is the main character in the Avengers. It's a pretty good argument if you really listen to it. Anyway, if her being the lead was the only thing that made this movie interesting from a feminist lens, I probably wouldn't even address it, but it's not. From the first trailer having the O in Hero disappear a little early, it was clear that this movie was marketed as something more than just a superhero movie starring a woman. Going into the movie, I was honestly intrigued by that. I knew that these writers were really good and they were able to deepen a character who otherwise would maybe be a little two-dimensional, as that's what they basically do in all of their movies. And in the past, when Marvel has a movie that has a social angle, It hasn't felt super forced to me, and it's made the movie more enjoyable, in my opinion. In this, it truly felt like a missed opportunity. The story beats that were centered around feminism all felt really cliched and forced. There weren't that many, but the way the movie was marketed had led me to believe that there would be something here, or at least something handled with care. A superhero movie with a strong female lead is one thing, and a feminist movie about a superhero is another. Both can be totally good. This movie was neither of those things, though. It was like somewhere in the weird in-between. Anyway, at the end of the day, Captain Marvel is just fine. It falls in the same zone for me as like Thor and Iron Man 2, maybe Thor the Dark World even. While the idea of bridging the gap between Iron Man and Guardians was pretty cool and adding some backstory was kind of nice, it just didn't work well enough to feel totally necessary. So yeah, overall, my feeling about Captain Marvel, primarily unnecessary. My final rating for the movie is probably a 6 out of 10, but it might be a 5 one day. It'll probably be a 5 one day. We'll see. We'll say it's 6 for now, though. Barely. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this one was a little bit different than other videos, a little bit longer. I hope that was okay. Let me know in the comments if you like this format, and maybe I'll do videos like it more often in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, keep watching movies.